You're up. Good afternoon, members. It is now 1:02 p.m. and I call this budget hearing into order. Before I begin, I'd like to introduce a member of the committee. We'll start with my far right. We have the chairman for PATC, Representative Richard Lizama. To his left, we have Representative Benita Yaktamai. She's the chairwoman for Commerce, Tourism, and Cannabis. And to her left, we have Representative Vicente Camacho. He is the chairman for Federal and Foreign Affairs. Moving over to my left, immediate left, we have Representative Ralph Yumo, our floor leader. To his left, Representative Ed Probst, the chairman for gaming. And to my far left, we have Representative Christina Saflan. She is the chairwoman for Health and Welfare. The individual between her and Ed Probst, who just stepped out, is Representative Leila Staffler, and she is the chairwoman for Education. All right, members, with 8 members present, that constitutes a quorum to conduct today's budget hearing. Next item on the agenda is the adoption of the agenda. Can I get a motion? The motion was placed and seconded. All in favor of adopting today's agenda, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. Motion carries. All right. And moving forward is the opening statement of the chair. Good afternoon, members. Today with us before the committee is the Department of Corrections. From my experience, at least within the last 2 years, we haven't had an audience with the department, and so we invited them today to speak in regards to the needs of the agency. But keep in mind that something new this fiscal year is a Volume 4, which is the governor's proposal for the American Rescue Plan. And so today we'll be discussing some of the requests that the department has made, what was proposed under the general fund, what was proposed under the American Rescue Plan. And I believe we have 2 legislations that are sitting in a committee as well, and hopefully we will get to hear on your opinion in regards to those legislations that can committee push out those legislations as well that would benefit the agency, or if it's a concern, that's something that the members can take into account. And so with that, thank you, Commissioner, for being here today. And before we open the floor for questioning, I now hand the floor over to you or any of your representatives to provide any opening remarks that you would like to give. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Honorable Mr. Chairman and members of this committee. Wally Flores Villagomez, Commissioner of Department of Corrections. Joining me this afternoon to my left is Director Georgia Cabrera. To my right is Ms. Rita Iglesias from admin, along with my staff for support. The mission of Department of Corrections is to improve public safety by housing detainees and inmates in a safe, secure, and human environment that meets constitutional standards for confinement, and to provide inmates opportunities to participate in rehabilitative programs to assist them in becoming a law-abiding citizen. The governor's budget proposal for DOC, which DOC supports our mandate to provide for a safe, secure confinement and pre-trial and sentencing inmates, and will support our operations and programs. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Before we move forward, I'd just like to recognize a couple of individuals that walked in to my right. We have the Vice Chair, Representative Ivan Blanco, and then down over here we have Representative Sheila Bavalta, the Chairwoman for Natural Resources. And my apologies, assisting the committee today, we have the LB staff with us today, our legal counsel, Joe Tyrone, our fiscal analyst, Dayton Pond, and our legislative assistant, Ms. Claire Sablan, and then Sergeant at Arms, Mr. Dennis Regis. And then I already introduced Rep. Sacker when she was away, but she's joining us now. All right, members, so before I open the floor to the members, so Commissioner, what I have in front of me are just the history of the department's expenditures, like at least a summary, based on our records, the record compiled by the fiscal analyst. For fiscal year 2018, it showed a deficit or over expenditure of about 1.1 million. 2019, based on the under report, it is showing about 725,000. Fiscal year 2020, 2.8 million. And then currently, within the past 2 quarters, ending in March 31st, there's an over expenditure of 1.3 million, and that's just the first half of the fiscal year. And so the members would like to hear what are the biggest attributes to these over expenditures, and especially in the current fiscal year of what is already at 1.3 million. And if the amount is not what you're seeing, maybe you can give us your calculation and determination.
Okay.
It was due to shortage of manpower, and then U2 came along, and after during U2 there was a lot of off-island medical referral to the mainland, to Guam, for further treatment.
This fiscal year, the first 2 quarters of this fiscal year?
Because of for this one is because of the budget reduction.
So of the 1.3 million, how much of this is attributed to personnel, and what percentage is for operations?
Sure. I don't think they have a copy of that. What we're looking at.
Sorry, I guess before we continue further, are you aware of your current financial status as of second quarter of this fiscal year?
Yes.
So you do see that about 1.3 million? Laura, is that what you're referring to?
Yes.
And so of the 1.3 million, again, how much or what percentage of this resulted from personnel?
Mr. Chairman, so during FY 2021, our budget was severely cut. So that's why we're in the 1.3 million. So what we received in 2021 was 2.7 million. Normally our operation runs at 5 million, but with 2.7 for the whole fiscal year, this is really short. So that's why we are in the red.
Right. No, that I understand, but I guess to clarify my question, of the 1.37 million, is 1 million of that personnel costs or operational costs? Is that something that you have with you?
I believe that half of that may be for personnel. I'm looking at our expenditures right now. Personnel alone is 1.092 deficit.
For personnel
Yes. And then
and the rest?
the rest are
Okay.
all others, our operations.
How many current FTEs does the department have?
Presently, we have 112 employees.
How many of these are election officers?
So we have 11 civilians and the rest are all sworn officers. So 101 sworn personnel.
Going back to personnel, you mentioned that about 1.092 or 1,092,000 was for personnel. Do you know how much of this is for overtime?
Overtime alone was at 500,000.
For the first two quarters?
Yes.
Weren't you allotted 119 FTEs last fiscal year and this fiscal year?
That's correct. So we have 7 vacancies right now.
And any plans to fill those vacancies?
Yes, we have plans. One of it is a director, one is a counselor, and the rest we are restructuring the rest to corrections cadets.
So I'm looking at 1 director, 1 counselor, 5 officers. At
That's
a,
correct.
at a, because you've already gone through 500,000 in overtime, how much officers do you need to fully operate and reduce these overtime costs?
Right now, we have 6 to 7 officers on the ship. An ideal number would be maybe like 90 officers.
90 per shift?
Yes. 20
How many shifts in a day?
or 96. So 24 would be sufficient for a shift. And to reduce OT, it's best to have 4 shifts so that the officers are not overburdened, OT is limited.
So again, if you have 4 shifts and you are looking at assigning 24 per shift in order to reduce all these costs. So again, going back currently with your 4 shifts right now, how many do you have per shift?
Right now, we are operating with 3 shifts. We have 17 for the adult correction operations and 2 each for the juvenile detention. So we are short.
I have one more question before I hand it over to the members. Do you have a cost per inmate? The average cost per inmate?
Right now, we charge the U.S. Marshals and ICE with an $85 per diem per day. So $85 times 365 days. About 31,000 per inmate.
That's with a healthy inmate, but inmates who are sick, they need medical care, and then it'll be more cost, higher cost. We cannot deny that.
And what's the average inmate in a year?
Average,
Average number of inmates in a year, each year?
population-wise,
Population-wise.
well, our population fluctuate. Today, as of yesterday morning, yesterday our population is at 185 adults, and we have 2 juvenile. Out of that 185, we have 10 females. And male population includes also U.S. ICE detainees, U.S. Marshal, pre-trial serving sentence.
All right, thank you. Now, before I open the floor to the members, I'd like to recognize the presence of the Special Assistant for the Office of Management and Budget, Ms. Vicky Villagomez. So if any of the members or any of the representative from DOC have any questions pertaining to the proposal, she is here to assist the committee. And so with that, members, the floor is now open, and I recognize Representative Probst.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Commissioner, and thank you, your team, for coming in today. Appreciate your time. I think one of the biggest things when we often think of the Department of Corrections is, and everybody has differences of opinion with regard to your statement earlier. There tends to be a division when it comes to punishment, when it comes to those incarcerated at DOC. Some have claimed that retribution is what's most important. And of course, studies that we look at today and look at other countries are focusing more on rehabilitation. I guess my first question is, with regard to rehabilitation at the Department of Corrections, what opportunities are you giving your those incarcerated at the Department of Corrections? What what type of activities are they entitled to? Is it dependent on their, like, is there a level of danger or something, or what options do they have while they're incarcerated 24 hours a day? Thank you. That's my first question.
So they have a Bible study. We also have the outreach program where they assist government agencies out there that may need help. We are also working with NMTI. We met last week and we're gonna sign a MOA with NMTI within a week or so to start up a program inside the facility also.
Okay, thank you. Now, in terms of educational opportunities, is there educational opportunities for while they're in there? Is there a library in the Department of Corrections, access to books, access to tutors, or any type of instruction? Thank you.
Yes, we do have a library, and at the same time, we do have also a prison industry.
I'm sorry, what was the last one? What industry?
Prison industry.
Prison industry?
Yes.
What does that mean? Sorry.
So basically, they do like sewing, and that's where we also gonna have our NMTI go into that, where they going for education wise, also for adult basic education.
Thank you. And that there is one of the things that when we think of criminals who made bad choices but have the ability to be rehabilitated, that is where I think the key is, because if they can be rehabilitated, they don't have to go back to prison, can have a find gainful employment and move on with their life. I think that's always been the key. And of course, I'm sure you deal with those who just in any society you're unable to reach them. They're probably in a very dark place, and it's very unfortunate for whatever reason. I have concerns with things that in conversations that I've had with regard to the morale at the Department of Corrections, when it comes to whether it's training or even equipment. I do understand you guys have faced a budget cut. I have heard stories about the corrections officers not even having a radio while in their particular unit because of funding issues, that it's not working. I want to ask, is that true?
Well, when I came into office, that was the first thing, or those are the things that were popped up into my office. I've reached out to Homeland Security. They've assisted us with a couple of radios. Then at the same time, I've reached out also to Criminal Justice Planning Agency to seek for more radios also, and also equipment for the officers.
Thank you. I've also heard of faulty equipment when it comes to the actual, with regard to the security of the corrections. With regard to how things work, the doors and everything, the computer systems and cameras, I've heard that there are many out of order and that need replacement or need to be repaired, or it's outmoded or outdated. What can you tell us about the technology that's being used? How much is needed to be replaced? And if you have a rough estimate as to how much this will cost?
Okay, I am working on that right now as we speak. The vendor that used to work with us was a while back, or a couple years, and the vendor no longer wants to work with us anymore, so I had to reach out to other vendors in the mainland, which my IT right now are working hand in hand to find a vendor that can help us out with, most especially the locking mechanism, the surveillance cameras, to improve and change everything out. As far as for the costs, I don't have actually a rough estimate because the IT is still working on it and trying to make sure that that vendor can come out at any given time to troubleshoot if we may need them in the future or what.
Thank you. And sorry, if I may just have a few more questions, and I'll yield. With regard to, you mentioned, the director, Ms. Cabrera, that you mentioned about some prisoners have, of course, like anywhere else, have health issues. They have serious health issues, whatever it may be. They need medicine. They have other issues. There's no cameras, obviously, in the actual room, right? Because of privacy issues. So you can't see the inmate in the room. Is that correct? Okay. So if, for example, somebody had diabetes and had a bad reaction or needed insulin or something like that, and wanted to contact somebody, how would they reach out to somebody if they were in their cell?
Sir, the Department of Corrections, all the pods we have 4 pods. So in every pod, there's different sections. And in every section, there are officers assigned to each section. So when it comes, we have the doctor at hand, the medical unit. So there's a time that the officers would do the glucose check on an inmate, diabetic. And then the machine is right there, pretty much. So if the blood sugar is low, blood sugar is high, our doctor is on hand at all times and we contact. And if the doctor tells us otherwise on the phone, what needs to be done, if immediate attention is needed, we immediately call for medics and we transport. But in every part, in every section, one officer is assigned and the officers do their routine and maintain in the section, checking on the inmates if any concerns.
Okay, so they're able to contact somebody within the pod if there is an emergency, if they have a health issue, or something like that. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And last 2 questions. With regard to medical issues, if they have if they need medicine, for example, that burden of the cost that's shouldered by the Department of Corrections. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes, sir.
And so if somebody were to have a serious accident or something, needs medical attention, who pays for that? Does the Department of Corrections have to incur those costs?
Yes, sir.
So it could be very expensive if somebody were, okay, I just want to make that clear. Last question I wanted to ask about is the commissary. Commissioner, last time when we did have a meeting back in the commissary was not operating. Is it operating today?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm glad to see that. No further questions at this point. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rep. Probst. I would also like to recognize the presence of the chair for JGO, Representative Selena Bavalta. Welcome, Rep. Bavalta. Welcome back.
Thank you.
I just want to make note, this is for S.A. Villa Gomez on the American Rescue Plan 1335A. There's a minor computation error, or maybe there's an explanation to it. Under the fringe benefits, the total should have come out to 8,070 as opposed to 9,411. So you said earlier you currently have 112 employees, but the fiscal year 21 budget has allotted 119 FTEs. When do you plan to hold a an academy, if we were to get you additional FTEs, and that would be funded currently under the additional or any Rescue Plan Act funds that the department might be receiving or has already received. Have you scheduled a time where maybe an academy is something that the department is going to hold? And if so, when would you be expecting that?
Right now, we are working with NMC. By June, if I'm not mistaken, June 7 or June 8, we're gonna sign a MOA with NMC to start off academy. Okay. It'll be sanctioned also under NMC.
Thank you. I now recognize Representative Lizama.
Thank you, Chairman. And welcome, Commissioner. I just want to ask a simple question to the veterans there, because this is your first term as a commissioner, correct? All right. With the experience that you have, Major Cabrera, Director, with the experience that you have, in the previous time you had been to an operation where you fall under the commissioner of the DPS, correct?
Yes.
So for this time now that you have this commissioner on your hand, if that makes you feel safer and more what do you call it, more correspondence with the people that you work with versus DPS. How do you feel about it now?
When we were on the DPS back in the day, I was a cadet, worked at the academy under the Division of Corrections. So in 2004, we became a department. And to compare then and now, I'm not gonna, after being in the department or in the government for over 20 years, to compare if it's better now than then. For me, it's the same. As long as there's communication and understanding in what we do and ensuring that we assist all frontline officers needing assistance, we're good.
The reason why I'm asking you this, I know we don't go back to some issues that they had before about favoritism. You understand? So that's the reason why I'm asking you. I want you to hear that out to our members. That's why I asked that question. My other question, you have 112 employees in your facility, right? And about 11 civilians.
It's 111.
11 civilians, 101 deputized officers, correct?
Yes, sir.
Meaning they're authorized to handle guns, correct?
Yes, sir. That's commissioner and
Yes. So 67 officers in the facility, in the correction, in what do you call that? What you just mentioned something about the block. What is it? Is that
the pot.
the box? 67 officers. So you have like maybe in the office, how many members? How many sergeants? I mean, how many? Is that really in means versus you are lacking in the pot right now? You are lacking of personnel. Don't we need more people in there for the safety? And so that, what is the ratio? What is the ratio per person, per officer to handle each spot? What is the ratio? Can you tell me that?
Well, it depends on the population-wise, because in DOC, in the Department of Corrections nationwide, including the states, we go with the classification custody level. Person can come in and be a minimum, for example, and can end up in maximum. Now, if in every part, in every section, there's a maximum number of persons you can house in the section. So if the number have increased up to, let's say, 48, we need 2 officers inside. Because there are officers also in the other sections and there's a main control. So right now with the amount of 5 sections divided amongst the 3 parts for the adults, we have 1 officer. But if we have more officers coming in, then we're going to increase the.
Well, I understand that.
Yes, sir.
I understand. Should be a requirement, a ratio requirement per officer to handle. You cannot handle 10 detainees 1. Is that allowable? And then-
Can, yes, sir?
Okay, so the ratio was still within.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Again, it depends on the classification of that section.
We're trying to find some money.
Yes.
You know? So anyways, the other question that I would like to ask, detainees from the federal, how often do you get your reimbursement? How quick do you get your money so that you don't have to go under the deficit? Anyone can answer that?
Normally, like within a month, that's how long we receive our reimbursement.
So the cycle's okay.
Yes, the cycle is okay, but then again, it really depends on how many federal detainees we have. Sometimes we have 4, so, the reimbursement is smaller.
Good.
Yeah.
Depends on how many you have on
Yes.
hand. Yes, that's all. Because you said $85 per diem, per person, right?
Yes, correct.
Now, medical needs. I know that sometimes we wait until someone is really, really sick to take them to the hospital. And then you're gonna require to have escort and man by 2, I believe.
Yes.
Because we used to do when I was enforcement. Don't you have a plan where you have medical personnel coming to the detainees? Do you have that, or anybody like a nursing aid section, or some type of daily? Because 185, that's a lot of people. 185. At least on a weekly basis, bring medical needs. Is that going to cost anything? Put it here.
We have a full-time doctor.
Oh, so it comes on
Sorry,
every day.
Commissioner, I have to say that. We finally, Commissioner working with and the administration, and we managed to get 1 full-time doctor. Unfortunately, we do not have a nurse on site, so the doctor's there 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. And then certain inmates, if they have medical condition, their ailments, they have doctors that just when the doctors will be able to see them if they have concerns, or the officers bring them down to the medical unit, calling that the inmate is sick for training. The doctor checks them, and if the doctor sees that hey, we should bring this person to the ER, then we bring them up to the ER.
Well, that will be open now. If I come up with anything else, I'll come in my second round. Thank you. I yield back.
Thank you, Rep. Lizama. I recognize Rep. Stafford.
Thank you, Chairman. Okay, welcome and thank you for coming today. I have many questions. I'm trying to figure out where I should start. So, thinking of your academy, when was the last time you had one? I don't know if you said that. I must have missed it.
2018 was the last time.
When you have an academy, how big are your cohorts? Like how many students or cadets?
We're pushing for at least 35.
Have you ever had 90 officers on shifts before in the past? Like, have you ever had a full capacity of what you needed ever?
Yes, that was way back in 2018 before.
So after the academy. So like when you have your cadets that, pass and finish, what kind of like, what's the word I was writing down? With respect to maybe resignations, your retention rates, how much do you lose when every time you get a new set, I suppose? Like, do you replace everyone that you lost usually?
Or it all depends because we can push for 20 comes in, and then 5 or 10, either they resign or for whatever reason why. Yeah, so it fluctuates in the numbers.
Okay. What are your retention rates like, just in general for your employees or officers? Like how many resign each year, I guess? How many people do you lose on a regular basis, that average?
So far, since I came in roughly around 5.
Which then affects the overtime, right? And looking at the budget that you were given, which was very, like half of what you normally get, what kind of cuts did you guys make in an effort to stay in that number?
Well, we try, every angle to try and cut down or what, but then again, it's hard because we gotta make sure, most especially the inmates, are well taken care of. But then again, if we're short or anything, I've reached out to the administration.
That was going to be my next question. Because you are already in this big deficit, how are you operating? How are you getting coverage?
The administration has been supporting us 100% since.
How many different types of revolving funds do you guys have that have access to?
We have two. So we have the U.S. Marshal and the ICE.
What do you use those funds for to cover?
Basically for operations and not salary.
Not salary?
Not salary.
I will yield from now. Thank you.
Thank you, Rep. Stadler. In regards to vendors, how are you, maybe I missed this, right? How are you in regards to your payable or how much is owed to vendors? Are they paid up to date, or do you still have past due invoices?
Yes, we do. We have past due. We communicate with finance on which vendor needs help in getting paid.
Yeah, the figure.
I'm sorry, I don't have figures right now, but
Based on your last assessment, how much are we looking at? Oh, unpaid invoices.
I mean, if we're deficit by 3 million or 2 million, then that's.
Right. So, well, the reason I asked is because about 2-3 weeks ago, when the CDL came in, a lot of agencies were seeing their vendors being paid, and I wanted to see if that's also the same with corrections. But within the last 2 to 3 weeks, based on your I don't know, recollection, none of these, you haven't seen payments going out to any of your vendors?
We do, but I haven't really stayed on top of it because what normally happens is the vendors, they bring their invoices to finance and then they normally follow up with finance themselves. If they do need help, they come and reach out to us and we provide that extra pushing. But,
Okay.
yeah, I mean, I can try and get the figures.
Yeah, if that's something that you can prepare for the committee, we appreciate it. The floor is now open. I recognize Rep. Cavazza.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Commissioner and team, for being here today. And thank you for your opening statement, really sharing your mission statement with us, that your sole responsibility is really to house and detain inmates in a safe, secure, and humane environment, provide opportunities to participate in rehabilitation programs, to assist them in returning and reintegrating into society. right? That is the overall mission, that is the goal. And so we appreciate your presence and your answers, and really helping us learn more about the corrections department, the Department of Corrections. I want to begin my questions in regards to your infrastructure. Can you just tell us about your building infrastructure? What is the state of your environment? What are some opportunities for improvement, and any damages experienced during the previous typhoon?
So right now, what we're doing is we're doing our daily maintenance on our facility. As far as for typhoon, we do have some damage during Typhoon U2, which was the air conditioning system, the roll-up gate in the back of the facility, and also some parts of the roof.
Okay, and Director, can I ask you, because you do experience the facility on a daily basis very intimately, can you just elaborate on that? The condition, what is the condition of your building, both for the inmates and for the staff? Office space, recreational area, break room. Can you just go ahead and elaborate on that?
The building, anything that goes down right now, we fix and repair. If it's a big repair, like what the commissioner had done, we reach out also to CIP for assistance to help with some of the infrastructure that needs for repair or replacement. If inside the building, the Department of Corrections, we have the pods and we have the food court where inmates are taken out. If anything happens in the pressure area for the inmates, we have our maintenance that comes in, and we do what they can to repair so that it will not cause any injuries.
Do you have any ongoing construction happening right now in the facility?
Construction?
Hmm? Any improvements or any repairs being made at this time?
Right now, like what Director mentioned, was we're on the final phase with CIP and changing the fire alarm system for our facility.
Okay, so that is the alarm system, but no actual construction happening right now, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. And this would really be the time to share the concerns that you have, the needs that you have, that the department wants to let this body know. So moving on, I see here with personnel, you have one counselor for all of your inmates and for your staff, and one position that is vacant. How long has that position been vacant?
Since February.
So in the past, there were two counselors on board?
Yes.
And does the counselor see all of the inmates regularly and the staff? Is there a schedule?
Yes.
There is. And is that a position that you are looking to fund again in the coming fiscal year?
Yes.
Okay. Well, that's good to know, because you know, you mentioned your outreach programs, the kind of rehabilitation programs that you offer the inmates. All of that is great, you know, Bible study, community, outreach and construction improvements, and we are grateful, the community is grateful. You have done great work with providing this assistance. However, looking at some data that was provided to me because of some research I was doing on our inmates and
Yes.
and the ethnicities, it has come to my attention that since 2016,
It's right here.
the
This is
number
all I
of
can do right now.
bookings,
Yeah, this is
it
all it
really
shows.
is an alarming rate
This is
to
just
see the
for the-
number of bookings
For the
reflect
life. But this is
that
Facebook,
it
so I
is our
cannot zoom
tomorrow
into-
men.
But it's showing that.
Every year, the Chamorro men and even Chamorro women are the highest number of bookings every year. And so with these rehabilitation programs, how are you
Yes, I
addressing
can
this
move it,
kind
but
of
since I
data?
move it this way, see, it's gonna-
And how are we
it's gonna show
ensuring
this,
that
but I'm trying to
our
show those-
community is really being
Yes, yes.
assisted, you know, to reintegrate into society? How do you know that the rehabilitation programs that you're offering works? Because to me, this data is really, it's really sad to see our indigenous population be the highest number of bookings for our inmates. And we go through so much already, you know, as a community, as an indigenous population. We have so many competing demands in the home. And so back to the data on your rehabilitation programs, how do you know that they're working? Because this data shows that it's not really working, especially for indigenous people. So is this something that you all review? Do you collect this kind of data? Do you respond to this data? Because in the future, you know, 20 years from now, we want to see this number decrease for sure, especially among our indigenous men and women. So can you please just answer that question on rehabilitation? How you ensure that it is working, you know, that you're providing the resources that really the inmates need to go back into society and ensure that they really don't come back?
There's something I need to say. And the commissioner can talk about the rehabilitation part, but I want to make a clarification on the booking. Every person that comes into our facility, we book them in. Be it a 24-hour arrest, they come in initially as an arrestee, then Rule 5 applies, where we can hold them more than 24 hours before they're brought to court. They become a pretrial. Once their sentence is done, and then they're adjudicated, then they get rebooked again to releasing them from pretrial condition and then booking them under serving sentence. Please understand that a person who is in our facility as a pretrial, we cannot expect to put them into whatever programs we may have unless they're done with their cases and they either plead their case or found guilty by courts and the judgment and conviction orders comes out. A lot of times, there are also times that they're booked in as a pretrial, they won their case, or they're in our facility as a pretrial for a couple of days, a week, a month or so, and they get released under pretrial. So the booking is only, when we book people in, yes, it has the ethnicity. A lot of people that comes in and gets booked would say that they're Chamorro, but you know, because they're born here. So again, booking is just anybody that comes in, even we have our contracts with the federal U.S. Marshals and the ICE. If they bring their detainees or their prisoners in, we still have to book them. Although we do not release information about them. That's the process of our booking. Once they're adjudicated, and depending on the court order, prior to the pandemic hitting, we have the commissioner was talking about the Bible study. Yes, we do have those. Different religion comes in, we have a schedule for them. And then we also, commissioner can correct me, but I believe there was a MOA in place with our SAR, the Hope Center. And they're also in the process of working with the department, but then the pandemic hit. We're trying to, I don't think anyone will go back to norm, but the commissioner is finding ways how we can be able to bring these things into our facility without affecting anyone inside, because we can never tell what will happen tomorrow. Today we're okay, we don't know tomorrow.
Thank you, Director, for that clarification. That is really helpful to understand. That does open some questions as to data collection for me, because this is important data that we really can use. You know, it's so valuable for us to use in decision-making, policy development, and et cetera, because this does reflect the crime rate in our community, right? It reflects the health and the mental state of our community. So thank you for that clarification. And thank you, Commissioner, for just sharing with us that you are starting conversations with NMCI, because, you know, skill development is important. We really need to help our people reintegrate, right? That's how to find jobs, how to start a network, just how to live back out in the world again. Thank you, Chairman. I just have a couple more questions. I want to move into your staff, your corrections officers, your admin. According to the information that you provided, Correction Officer 1 makes about $19,000, almost $20,000 a year, going up to around $38,000 based on the rank, right? And so $19,000 a year. That is, I just cannot even fathom. I cannot even imagine how one would provide for one's family on that salary, right? And then to hear about the extensive overtime, further taking away time from the family, right? So shift differential. Can you speak on that? Is that something you offer? This is in addition to the base pay. It's a higher amount if they are to work overtime. It is a higher amount if you were to work on the weekend or get called back in. Is that something that is offered to your staff, to the corrections officers when they work overtime, or are they just being paid the same rate and just more hours?
So corrections officer 1, they make $21,219, and we only offer overtime. There are no premium pays like night differential or hazardous pay. That was stopped a while ago. Into year 2000?
1999 to 2000.
From 1999 to
But it's only night differential. It was only, back then it was only night differential. So they only give hazardous pay during typhoon back then. If I'm not mistaken, 1999, 2000, there was an austerity that kicked in. They killed our night differential, they stopped it, and it has not been returned since then.
Is that something that you are looking into, Commissioner? Is that something that, you know, night differential, premium, overtime pay, hazardous pay? I think this kind of environment is not normal for any of us, right? This kind of environment for your corrections officers is such a dangerous and threatening environment that I'm sure is very stressful, not just for them, but for their families, right? Every time they go to work. And so in addition to other benefits, salary is really the main way that we can show our support, show how much we value our corrections officers. And so I would really like to hear your thoughts, Mr. Commissioner, on premium pay, shift differential, night differential, etc.
Well, we are looking into that, you know, at least working on how we can improve the morale, most especially inside. So by doing those things, you know, like night differential, hazardous pay, or what, it's gonna boost up the morale. It's in the talks right now.
Thank you. I'm glad to hear some talks. I hope that there's also action that will follow that talk because in addition to, boosting the morale of the employees, increased pay will also reduce the risk of any illegal behavior, right, bribery, etc., that may or may not happen just in any kind of corrections facility. And so, thank you. I'm glad to hear that from you. My last question is in regards to visitation. During the pandemic, just social distancing and things like that. People still want to visit their family members who are in prison. Can you speak about that? Has that been lifted? I personally have made a visit to the corrections department. I have been trying to visit my relatives in there. And so I really would just like to hear any update on that and how you're handling that and communicating with the families on how we can communicate with our families in there. We know that everybody makes mistakes. Everybody deserves second chances, deserves a chance to reintegrate into society, but our community is very small, our family is connected, we want to visit our families, so can you just expand on that for me?
Yes, we're working with the COVID-19 task force, designating an area in our facility for visitation. Because first we started off with the drop-off, and then we're moving along to open up the visitation. But then again, we're working with the task force. So we should be opening up soon.
And so at this time, just for clarification, how would one visit a family member? Is it just a drop-off?
For now, it's a drop-off for the inmates. A family member can drop off for the inmates.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that clarification. Mr. Chairman, thank you very much.
Thank you, Rip, about the, sorry, before I pass the mic over. Going back to the pay scale for a corrections officer, sorry, clarification, you said CO1 makes about 21K? Do you know what the nation average is? Do you know what Guam is? How much higher? Talking about 10 grand higher?
Yes, the only one in Guam probably makes 25,000 or 25 to 30,000.
In a pay period, what's the normal hours work for a corrections officer before hitting overtime? Is it 86?
That's
80,
right.
86? And based on how much overtime you've been incurring, what does an average CO1, how many hours in overtime are they getting per pay period?
Their scheduled OT is about 30 hours.
On top of the 86
Yes.
per pay period?
30 to 39 hours.
In one pay period?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. I hand the floor over to Savon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just did a quick search online and it looks like Guam corrections officers, one, make anywhere between 33 and 37,000 in base salary. Just for the record. Okay, welcome, Commissioner and Director Cabrera and Ms. Iglesias. Thank you for your presentation today. My first question is just following up on Representative Probst's questions regarding the commissary. So when we met, I guess in January 2020, you indicated, the commissary wasn't open then, but you indicated that there appears to be some mismanagement of the funds and that you were going to seek an audit of the program. Has that audit happened?
Well, we've reached out to a couple auditors, and they came back with, why don't you just settle within your department with your internal affairs? So, yeah, so what we did is we just gather everything, gather all the documents and paperworks from the old management and secured everything. And, we're still actually looking around for an audit because some of them like, oh, we need something bigger. That's too small for us to handle.
Okay, did you request assistance from the Office of the Public Auditor?
Honestly, no.
Okay. I would suggest that you reach out to OPA, particularly if you're having a hard time retaining the services of private auditors. And could I just ask, I mean, you mentioned gathering these documents, and it sounds like you were doing more of an internal review of the commissary. So at the time that we were asking about it, so a little over a year and a half ago, there were inmates that had either already exited, or former inmates that had already exited DOC, or their family members, or they were about to exit DOC, and they just wanted to get their money back because there was no commissary operating at the time. Were they able to get those funds?
Yes, they got it.
They all were able to get their money back. Okay, thank you for clarifying that. And then what happens with the funds from the commissary? Does that just stay within the commissary, or is some of that money used for DOC operations?
The commissary funds, it's like a revolving. We purchase stuff that to replenish what's needed, and sometimes it helps also the department. There's enough money in there, go out and buy TV. That's for the inmates.
Okay.
So that's what the fundings are used for, replenishing the commissary, and also at times when there's the department we buy POs, like TV. The commissary also comes out and give for.
Okay, so who's running the commissary now?
One of my officers.
One of the officers. Okay. And Commissioner, there have been reports from both current and former inmates that they found it quite easy to get drugs in corrections. Easier in some cases, according to at least some of these inmates, in DOC than it is on the street. It's also been reported that a significant percentage of corrections officers may be using drugs themselves. Are you aware of these reports?
Congressman, if it's okay, I mean, can I answer your question on a closed door? And maybe at your office or?
May I ask why?
It's there's some confidential things that I don't want to mention up to the public, or if it's okay with you, if you want, we can meet after the budget hearing regarding that information or that question.
Okay. May I just ask for a quick clarification from council? If that would be an appropriate subject for executive session?
Definitely.
Thank you. And then, so, okay, yes, we can discuss those matters offline. But I do want to ask just generally, when was the last time that there was drug testing at corrections?
Last week.
Last week, okay. And did any test hot?
We'll discuss.
Okay. As you may know, Commissioner, there is a bill that is pending in committee now, House Bill 22-7, that aims to provide more clarity in the law as to contraband items getting into corrections. Did you participate in the drafting, or anyone from your team participate in the drafting of that legislation?
That's the contraband bill?
Yes,
Yes, ma'am.
you did.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So the date. Will there be comments from corrections on that bill? It's in review now, and I believe our chair did
He
see
was,
comments.
when he was on, Congressman Representative John Posebon gave us a draft and asked for inputs. And then they did that, and Representative Peralta, I'm sorry.
Mhm.
We spoke about that when we met
Okay.
a few months ago.
Okay, great, thank you. So I guess if you're providing written comments, that would be helpful for the committee. My next question, in October 2020, you probably recall, I think we all recall, there was a hostage situation that ended tragically. 2 people died in the standoff. The weapon involved was a government-issued gun that belonged to a now former corrections officer. The weapon had been pawned off. It ended up in the hands of the hostage taker. So 2 lives ended. The safety of the public and the law enforcement officers who were involved was threatened. What steps, Commissioner, has the department taken, if any, to ensure that that kind of thing doesn't happen again, and to just review the policies and protocols and make any changes to ensure that weapons are securely maintained, and that corrections officers are handling their weapons responsibly?
If I may again, on the recess, I can discuss further on that question.
Okay, so this is just a matter of policies that have been adopted. Those should be open record, right? Have you changed any policies at corrections?
There was some policy that we're actually working also at the same time with our legal counsel.
Okay, who is your legal counsel?
Leslie Healer.
With the AG's office. So just assigned to DOC.
Yes.
Okay, that's good. So you can just call and ask for advice. You don't have to fill out a form to get advice. Okay, that's good. Okay, so you mentioned you have 2 minors now in detention at DOC. Are they kept separate from the adults?
Yes.
And do they have access to education?
Yes.
So there is a teacher coming in, instructors coming in. Okay. Are there any other services that they have access to?
Is that for the juveniles?
For the juveniles.
Oh, everything is in place now with regards to juveniles, because when the executive order was signed, placing the security and control under Department of Corrections, the division or Department of Community and Cultural Affairs Division of Youth Services still plays a role when it comes to the programs.
Okay.
So everything that is required and is needed for the juvenile clients in our facility, they're providing that.
Okay, through DOIS.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Now, Commissioner, when we met about 1.5 years ago, you indicated then that you wanted to initiate these adult basic education programs. I think you mentioned the NMTI partnership back then as well. And we understand that the pandemic may have affected those plans, and I am glad to hear that that those plans are still in the works. But may I ask, what percentage of your inmates and staff have been vaccinated at this point for COVID-19?
For the inmates, 95%.
Wow. Okay.
For the officers, we're 100%.
100%. Okay. Okay, so that's reassuring if you're going to be moving forward with reopening these programs, right? But at this time, am I correct in understanding that the only correctional programs that inmates have access to, for now anyway, is Bible study and the outreach program?
For now, not the Bible study.
Not the Bible study.
For now, because of the pandemic.
Okay, so just the outreach program. And what does the outreach program entail?
They help out in any and all government agencies that may need help out there. And they've been saving government or the departments a lot with our help.
Okay, so like, I mean, I see some of the guys bush cutting and
Yes.
painting. So, are they paid for that labor or no?
No.
They're not paid. Do they get any sort of credit for that labor?
No. That's why we're working with NMTI. So that way they can, at the same time, they can earn the community service as part of the program.
Mhm. They don't earn any privileges, any commissary benefits or anything like that for the work that they do?
Yes, they
They do. Okay.
commissary.
So I also understand sometimes the inmates will be tasked with making picnic tables or trailers or things like that. So what happens to those items?
Well, it all depends on the agency or department if they request for them to make picnic tables or any other.
Are they sold though? Are those items sold for any amount of money?
No.
No. Okay. Not as far as you know. Okay. And just a couple of final questions. The federal agencies that have detainees at DOC, do they pay for the use of DOC facilities?
Can you repeat your question?
You mentioned you have federal detainees that are being housed now at DOC, right? Do the federal agencies pay for the use of the facilities?
They pay for the housing for federal prisoners. Again, if possible, I wouldn't answer any question regarding federal prisoners right now. We can do that on during recess.
Oh, I'm just asking for like the amount of money that gets paid. Is there an agreement in place?
Yes, ma'am.
There is. Okay. So where do those funds go? Or do those go directly into DOC operations?
It's the 3022.
That's 3022.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. And finally, Commissioner, did you furlough any officers last year?
Yes.
How many?
11?
11. Okay. And have they all returned to duty?
Yes.
All have returned. Okay. And
Well, just one retired
okay, but everybody else is back on duty.
and 2 have resigned.
Okay. And most of your officers, or are all of your officers civil service?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So you are aware then that they are protected by the civil service regulation. Are you aware that there is an audio recording that was circulating pretty widely on social media that appears to sound like you threatening to release anyone at any time? Was that you in the recording, and could you provide us some context for that?
It's necessary we discuss that also on our recess.
May I ask as a general question, have you taken any steps to ensure a safe and non-hostile work environment for your officers at DOC?
Yes.
You have. Okay, could you describe those steps? And the reason I ask this also, just as a general question of policy, is because this is an issue that comes up again and again, not just with DOC, but with other agencies where employees raise concerns with us about hostile work environments, toxic work environments, threats of retaliation or termination, right? So this appears to be affecting employees across the government, and it also appears to be affecting your employees. So yeah, if you could just walk us through what steps you have taken, whether you've reached out to OPM or any other service provider that may assist the department in providing that safe and non-hostile work environment.
Well, since I came in, I have this open door policy, where if there's any concerns or anything, any officer can come in and meet with me, discuss any issues or concerns, and from there, I would sit down with my command or my director and work with that officer, and try to make them feel welcome. Work as a team.
So that's a management approach that you tried to implement since the beginning. Okay. Okay. And in terms of just professional development, training, touching base regularly with your staff, does that happen at DOC?
Yes, we do have in-service training for our officers.
Okay. And for this current year budget, do you have resources identified that would support continued training, in-service training and professional development, maybe more assistance or guidance from agencies like OPM? Is that your upcoming budget would provide for that? Okay. Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I yield.
Thank you. Floor is open for the first round.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioner, good afternoon, Director, and Ms. Reed. You had mentioned earlier that you are okay with the governor's proposal submitted, which is, aligned with the 2019 budget figure, but less than what you proposed. Just wanted to see clarification on that. Was that in yours?
Yes.
So are there any additional items you perhaps may want the committee to consider? I'm not saying that you need new cells or pods, or what about new officers or FTEs for personnel, supplies?
Well, I'm supporting the submission of the governor.
So clarified. Thank you very much, Commissioner. Thank you. Chairman, thank you.
Thank you. I recognize Representative Zama. Second round.
Thank you, Chairman. No, since Rep. Salgado was mentioning about his training, it's very important that we do have it. We have people with diabetes and so forth. Do you allow in your facility to use, is one of the cancerous thing that's going on in Ireland, Gitternux? Do you allow them in the facility to officers and the detainees?
No, not inside the box or inside the.
What about on the office side, the officers?
Yeah, outside the break area.
Isn't that kind of temptation to detainees to say, man, we have that? Isn't that better? That it's better to set the example.
I think what the commissioner meant is inside where the inmates are.
Yes.
No chewing, no smoking in there. Officers, we have our break area outside of our facility in the back.
In unpaid vendors, how far back that hasn't any of those vendors have to pay how far back? 2 years ago, 3 years ago?
Maybe just a year, 1 year back, yes.
Because you mentioned that when people come to you, that's the time when you help. I think we need to set a program where you look at who you owe and start working on those people that have been waiting for their money. We need to set the example. We have seen people going into jail for not paying their dues. Right? So here we are. We got the service. We don't pay it. So let's work on that.
Yes, sir.
The commissary, I hope it's not profitable. Is it that you add some percentage for profit to do, purchase something like you mentioned? You do sometime buy television sets? You're making profits out of that? Or is it supposed to be a revolving, just to resupply your commissary? How does that work in your facility? If you don't, do we have the business license? Anyone answer that?
Yes, there is a business license.
There's a business license. So it's, like a commissary or the military, it's no profit. It's just a revolving. So I hope that that's how you operate, to make sure that you just resupply, resell. Thank you. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you, Representative Zama. Probably before I hand it off, going back to the commissary, I was asking the other members, is it privately owned or, sorry, just, can you clarify that? Privately operated?
Which one's the commissary?
Yeah.
No, sir. It's not privately owned.
Okay, so it's a business within the agency, but then any profits earned is used or goes into a revolving fund?
What I know of the commissary is there's a business license, and they do pay also taxes. And whatever's made, deposits, because even officers are billed to that. And so whatever's made, there's extra, they buy whatever's needed. But it's not for share profit. They replenish. If inmates or officers need certain items in the commissary service purchase.
So clarified. I recognize Rep. Selena Glauca.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just have a few questions. Yeah, it was mentioned that there is a U.S. Marshal revolving account and an ICE revolving account that is used for operations and not salaries. What is the balance on those accounts?
If I'm not mistaken, the balance for account 3022 right now is about maybe $6,000. I don't have the exact figure with me right now, but.
On a yearly average, how much do you guys collect from those?
It depends on the headcount, or how many detainees, both either ICE or the U.S. Marshal, based on the IGSA agreement, they bring into our facility.
What's the yearly average in the last, let's say, 3 years?
We may have to come back and give you that, but we will come back and give you that amount.
And is that enough? I mean, you guys have a balance of 6,000, assuming. Right now, is that enough for your operations? If it's
No, it's not. No, it's not, but, so we use 3022 when we don't have any in 1335 or the local accounts. The 3022 helps us with purchasing, operational supplies or repairs and maintenance.
okay, thank you. I'm concerned about officer safety, inmate violence, in correlation to inmate violence. Is there, in your experience, has there been inmate overcrowding? Has it significantly been has it significantly affected the correction officers' ability to respond to any situation that may happen inside the pods or the correction facilities? So no prison overcrowding? Is that correct? Is that what I understand from you guys?
Yeah, it's not
An issue.
It's not-
So no prison overcrowding, but you still need roughly 90 corrections officers per shift. Is that correct? That's what I'm understanding your
It's
request here
It's
to be.
not 96 per shift, ma'am.
Oh,
If it's total of 96 personnel for the shift, and if we can get that into 4 shifts,
for
we will significantly reduce the overtime cost, although we cannot stop, but it will significantly reduce the overtime. And then officers will be able to have resting period.
So going back, no prison overcrowding, but you are understaffed according to your request. And have you, as director or commissioner, ever gathered data with respect to inmate violence? Or do you guys have a standard operating procedures? Is there one in place for, to anticipate any scenario in there?
We have our policies and procedure in place now, and like the commissioner said earlier, we have under Title 57 on the administrative code, that's the Department of Corrections. And currently, we're working with our legal counsel from the Attorney General's office in going back to the Title 57 that was in place since we were under DPS, making the changes and conforming it to our facility, putting a lot of stuff in place.
I understand.
And as far as the data is concerned, with regards to in the ratio, or you want numbers as to inmate to inmate assault, inmate to officers assault?
Sure, why not?
Okay, I'll get it for you. Will you give me that time? Once
No
again?
problem, no
Thank you.
problem. So there is no standard operating procedure?
Yes, we have our policies and procedure reflects everything that we do in the department. We're just fixing it now, fixing it more to make it better with everything that's been happening in our surroundings.
Okay.
And if you want, we can give a copy of our policies for your review.
That won't be necessary at this time, but maybe later on. I will request as GGO chair, it'd be important for me to understand how you guys work in the day.
Yes, ma'am.
That's about it for now, but I would like at a later time, Chairman, not in this setting, but perhaps an informal meeting or an informal meeting, I think would be better to discuss all the sensitive issues, because I have received information that are very, very serious matters happening at the Department of Corrections. And I'd like to bring you guys in for that, as only you guys can answer those questions. Thank you. I yield.
Thank you. We are now approaching the 1.5 hour mark, and so I will close out with just a few more questions. In regards to the agreement that you have with the federal agencies, who sets the rate as to how much is being charged per inmate? And is that agreement, do you have that agreement for an entire year, or is this set for a period of X amount of years? How is that determined?
Right now, the IGSA, Intergovernmental Service Agreement, had been in place since 2007, 2008. Huh? Well, 2011 was the latest, when it was updated.
And is that, when are you expected to update that? I mean, based on everything that's going on and the increase in prices, I mean, is that an open conversation between DOC and the federal agencies, or how do you address all these changes that's happening in regards to the increased prices of goods or utilities and all of that stuff?
It can be, if Commissioner wants to go back and review, and we can make arrangement with the federal agencies, but I would say if you want, we can also review and look at actual contents of that agreement. And then again, if away from here, we can also include that and explain the IGSI.
All right, thank you. And one last one, in regards to the ARPA funds, have you met with OMB and Finance as to how much in those funds will the department be getting for the remainder of fiscal year 21?
Yes, we did meet with OMB.
Okay. Do you have a figure as to how much you'll be able to increase your allotment by?
$1.5 million to be spent over 2021 to 2024.
$1.5 million in total for the next 3 years?
Yes.
So you don't have a set amount for each month in the remaining of fiscal year 21?
So our monthly allotment would be $243,747 for account 1335 and $91.74 for 1335A.
All right, what's the 1335A?
9174.
And these are additional per month?
Yes.
All right, at this time, members, yes, recognize Rep. Salman.
Sorry, I just wanted to clarify, because there seems to be a discrepancy in the ARPA request that the governor submitted and DOC's request. Just 1.5 million over 3 years is what the department collected. Did I understand that? Because the governor's submission, just for 2022 alone, it looks like he requested an additional 3 million, or proposed an additional 3 million from ARPA for the department.
That's 240. Could that be the remainder of the year, 1.5? Ms. Vicky, can you clarify?
So that figure that the commissioner gave is for current year.
1.5 for the remainder of the current fiscal year.
The fiscal year limitation for the ARPA funds is through December 31, 2024, but they will get an allocation in 2022 of $3,035,000.
Right, so the 1 million is for the remainder of this current fiscal year. So clarify.
Well, it sounds like it's through December 2021.
No, the 1.5 that they
The
were.
1.5 is for this calendar year.
Whatever funds are allocated on the ARPA funds, that go up to December 31, 2024.
Okay. All right, thank you. And then just to continue my privilege, Mr. Chairman, if I still have the floor, because we did say on the open record that we would go into executive session to address the 3 of the issues that they asked to address in executive session. One is the issue of contraband materials getting into DOC, drug testing of the officers, and then this audio recording that appears to indicate, a hostile work environment. So what is the call of the chair? I do understand that we're past the 1.5 hour mark at this point, but if the members want to go into executive session, I can make the motion.
At this time, Rep. Sablan, with the additional request that Rep. Babauta may have, I think it would be best to schedule another session or another meeting with JGO or under JGO to discuss all these other issues that were brought up. Like I said, this is the first time we've met with DOC in the past 2 to 3 years, and so there's a lot of things that we like to address. But in the interest of time and with respect to what Rep. Babauta would like to bring up, maybe we'll try to schedule with Rep. Babauta to handle that meeting and to approach it through the judiciary and governmental operations.
Sure, I have no objection to that. Thank you.
All right, and with that, the last one, I recognize Vice Chair Blanco.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I thought we were on second now. Did any other members ask questions about compact impact? No? Okay. If it pleases the members, if I can ask, how much compact impact does the department receive every year?
For this year, we've received 318,000 for all others and 19,000 under personnel on compact impact.
19,000 for personnel?
Yes.
Okay. My final question is, so 318,000 for all others, 19,000 for personnel. Does this cover the amount of services provided for the freely associated citizens who are incarcerated? In other words, is the compact money funding enough?
The director said yes. So.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
So clarified. Thank you very much, Commissioner and your team, Chairman. Thank you, and I yield.
Thank you, Vice Chair. And so with that, I would like to take this opportunity to thank you, Commissioner Villagomez, and your team. Like I said earlier, I understand this is the first time in a long while that we've heard from you, from the department, and so there are certain questions that several members have that may require more time and investigation, and so I'll leave that to the chair of the respective committee to schedule that with you. But in regards to the budget, while I understand that you do support the governor's proposal, it seems like year after year, personnel always seems to be the issue. And this, with hearing that on top of their normal work schedule, they accumulate 30 to 40 hours in overtime per pay period, which in turn also may affect their mental state as well as their emotional and mental well-being. And so this is something that the committee will look into in regards to ensuring that the department is given the appropriate FTEs in order to fully staff here and provide more shifts. And so with that, if there's anything that we may have missed or anything that you would like to provide with the committee, feel free to reach out with the agenda that I attach. Contact information is there. And so with that, again, thank you for coming in this afternoon. And I now leave it to you if you have any closing remarks that you'd like to give.
Well, I think we're good. Thank you for members and the chairman for this committee for allowing us to come over. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. With that, members, we move on to the next item on the agenda, public comment. Anyone from the public would like to make any comment based on today's hearing? If not, we move on to announcements. Members, as a reminder, we have the judiciary on Thursday at 1 p.m. Vice Chair Blanco will be sitting on my behalf. I'm sorry, Commissioner, one thing that I did mention in the beginning, and I'm not sure if you're aware of House Bill 2235 and 36. Is that correct, Saban, yesterday, our discussion with receiving comments from corrections?
Contraband? Yeah, that's we did ask about that.
22.7?
22.7.
But 2235, was that one of them?
I should have the agenda here. On prohibiting convicted felons from possessing firearms.
Was that
I
one of the
don't,
discussions?
no, I don't think that we were seeking comments and correction. I think it was
Okay,
just.
so it was a contraband. Yeah, if you can provide the JGO committee with your comments on that, the contraband bill. And so with that, members, does anyone have any other announcement that they would like to make? If
Yes, so we have the Cagman High School graduation procession that will be coming up with their convoy tomorrow. It begins at 3 o'clock at the Marianas Resort and will be passing up through the past the legislature on the way to Cagman. So if anybody is able to join us to wave outside, thank you. It starts at 3 over there, and they are going to start on time, so it should probably pass here about 3:15, 3:20. Thank you.
all right, thank you, members. Now we move on to the next item. Jeremy, can I get a motion? Second. Was it second? Yes. Motion was made and seconded for the adjournment. All in favor, say aye. All opposed, say nay. Motion carries. The meeting is now adjourned at 2:49 p.m. Are you okay?